Greetings, unsettled, correct views. Sam I. B. the Gangi of the Media Speaks during political commentary for one and all today. Make sure you do me a favor, friends, and hit subscribe as I begin. It means a lot when you do that. It puts us up higher on search engines and it gets our message out to more people. The show is already on the Media Speaks here, my channel there, youtube.com/the correct views. Keep it going. Keep showing it to people. Let people know what they're hearing. It doesn't matter whether or not they like me. I don't care. Everything I give you is sourced. You're going to find it right here on FactCam. So here we go, friends. As I cough in your ear, welcome aboard. RT, January 18th. This is dated. Risk of a nuclear theft increasing. Now, for those of you that don't know, I do the massive Fukushima update once a month. And that lets you know everything that's been going on with Fukushima, the meltdown, the radiation. I also cover all things nuclear globally, whether it's Iran and the fact that they're building a nuclear power plant on the most worrisome earthquake area in the entire world. The same scientists that warned us about Fukushima's danger are warning us about the danger with this sheer nuclear plant in Iran. We cover it. We cover North Korea. We cover Chernobyl or not is still having ramifications. If you don't believe me, look up Belarus, Chernobyl deformities. Don't do it while you're eating. And you'll see exactly what I mean. Well, let me show you. A nuclear watchdog group warns that despite efforts to secure nuclear material, nations are still vulnerable to theft, as well as acts of sabotage or cyber attacks, which could enable terrorists to obtain nuclear materials or trigger a dangerous meltdown. I personally have always been intrigued by this because I'm sure if anybody thinks about it at all or puts any thought into it at all, this will become very obvious. Nuclear power plants, the reactors, do not by and large go online. Many of them are still running XP. That's fact. But they don't go online. What you're dealing with here is with updates, and perhaps they're unwisely using jump drives from computers that have been online. Beyond espionage, I don't know of any other way that this would happen. If anyone is in the field, feel free to let me know. 24 states still have 2.2 pounds or more of weapons usable nuclear materials, and nearly 4.4 million pounds of weapons usable nuclear material remains stored around the world, much of it still vulnerable to theft. This is from Sam Noon, chair of the Nuclear Threat Initiative. It's from a report, 2016 NTI Nuclear Security Index, Theft and Sabotage. Now, for those of you that don't know, this isn't science fiction. This is a matter of even if you don't make the bomb in the mushroom cloud that you just saw on the screen, even if you don't have all that, we're talking about the material that is left over, the tangible, if you can hold it. This material, if sprinkled around, say the mall, could wreak havoc on the entire city. Do you understand that? Look up nuclear accident Brazil and see what happens when somebody accidentally exposed cesium while doing scrapping. It happens. If it happens on purpose and happens in the right area, the ramifications can be never ending. The illnesses and mass death and sickness that would come afterwards would be unprecedented to anybody that wasn't in Japan, perhaps, during the end of World War II. Says the NTI index ranks nations in terms of their safeguards for keeping nuclear explosive materials protected. Alarmingly, the report found that more than 80% of all nuclear explosive materials are held by militaries whose practices and safeguards are not covered by international agreements on security of such materials. The report urged all nuclear weapon states to agree on a set of security precautions to implement. I could say yes and no. The trouble is that would make it easier to get in, you would think. But he's right about this. We are in a race between cooperation and catastrophe, and the world's leaders must run faster, said Nuke, a former Senate Armed Services Committee chair. Well, I don't think they should all be exactly the same, but I think they should all have to do a minimum. After that, different countries are going to go beyond that, hopefully, maybe not, go beyond that in whatever ways they see fit. But I think there should be a mandatory must do. Yeah, I would agree with that. In 2014, the index listed 7 countries that were taking the most important steps in preventing the theft of nuclear materials through their elimination, but 2 years only Uzbekistan had done so. This could be a huge, huge problem. Um, Sweden are in first place for states with or without less than 1 kilogram of weapons nuclear material. Very, very good at keeping themselves safe in Sweden. Unfortunately, 24 states that did poorly were Australia, Japan, North Korea, of course, came in dead last. France and the United Kingdom score the highest among states, but they are also the most improved. So I guess America isn't at the bottom of that. But we know after what Bill Clinton allowed at Los Alamos, look up Chinagate. This is that's a risk, friends. It's a real risk. RT, LA will pay over 24 million to wrongfully convicted men who spent decades in jail. The trouble with this is this comes out of the taxpayers' money. I'm not saying he shouldn't get it. He absolutely should get it. Excuse me. But what I'm saying is, dying of thirst for those of you that can't see me. This, they knew when they did it that they were convicting an innocent man, and they went ahead and did it anyway. The Los Angeles City Council voted Tuesday to pay 16.7 million and 7.6 million to Case Register and Bruce Lisker, respectively, who were arrested as in teens and spent a combined total of 60 years in jail for a crime that they did not commit. Now, I understand that errors happen. I absolutely get that in every way. But what we're talking about here isn't really an error. What we're talking about is it sounds like they were very much aware. I'm going to get into it in a minute that these people were innocent. And they went ahead and pushed this false narrative anyway and got it pushed through to such a degree that it ruined these people's lives. Was that 30 years apiece, I guess, is what they're saying that these poor people went through? While the 2 cases were independent of one another, they share a common complaint against the Los Angeles Police Department. Detectives concocted evidence against Register and Lisker. Each man's overturned conviction and lawsuit against the city stated. I can't get these 34 years back, but I hope that my case can help make things better for others. Though improving the way police get identifications and other reforms, Register said in a statement released by his attorneys Tuesday, according to the Los Angeles Times. I bet you he wanted to say other things too. Register settlement may be the biggest sum of its kind in the history of Los Angeles, his lawyers contend. Register was released on December of 2013 after 34 years in prison for a 1979 murder in West LA. In West LA, he was 19 when he was wrongfully convicted. While police accepted one neighbor's claim to have heard gunshots and see Register fleeing the scene, contradictory evidence was dismissed. They wouldn't even listen to the evidence that proved him innocent. Why? Because they want to get those conviction numbers up. They don't give a damn if you're innocent or not. One of the neighbor's sisters, it says, told police that account of the lie, while a second sister told police they had the wrong suspect. The first sister, Sheila Vanderkam, typed Cash Register's unusual name, it's his real name with a K, into a registry search decades later. Very funny play on words there. Then, upon seeing that he was still in jail, it contacted the Register's lawyers, leading to a reopening of the case and his clearing. Lisker won his freedom back in '09, just now getting his money, by the way, after 26 years behind bars for a 1983 murder in Sherman Oaks. At the age of 17, He was wrongfully convicted of murdering his 66-year-old mother, who was stabbed in the back inside of her home. Lisker always claimed that he saw her motionless on the floor through a window, then broke into the house for help. House for help. I'm dying of thirst, friends. Police pinned the crime on Lisker using faulty evidence, including a prisoner informant's testimony, but the claims were eventually debunked in court, exonerating Lisker. The LAPD had said that it was physically impossible that Lisker's story of seeing his mother from outside could be true. But Los Angeles Times reporters and experts showed otherwise. Another piece of evidence police claimed conclusively showed Lisker's guilt was a bloody shoe prints in the bathroom. But the LAPD analyst and FBI expert testified against that theory as being successfully as well. So, friends, what they did was knowingly convict people of crime. This two stories right in a row. Don't tell me this is rare. You're seeing things like this more and more. And of course, we're now a decade or more into DNA proving this corruption again and again when the evidence was almost overwhelming in favor of the person who was convicted. It's very, very frightening. Kit Daniels, prison plan. An Islamic murder. Christian girls exist to pleasure Muslim men. This is from a Muslim killer. Now, again, this is an attack on Islam. It's an attack on this idea that somehow Europe and to some degree the U.S. has fallen for this notion that only the poor and needy are leaving Syria when we have documentation that ISIS has said repeatedly that their goal was to create a mass exodus so that they could assimilate into it, sneak into the countries, and kill people like they did in Paris. Even with documentation of this, they're being let in without being vetted. And we've covered on this show prior, you didn't go to Ellis Island back in the days of Bring Me Your Tired and your, I forget the exact quote. You didn't go to Ellis Island and get immediately dumped into New York City proper. You were there for sometimes up to a couple months to make sure that you weren't a danger, to make sure that you weren't carrying illnesses that were going to kill half of New York City, that kind of thing. This idea of just letting people roam into your country is unheard of. How that could be okay with anybody, I'll never understand. And a small number, but significant percentage-wise, of these people are creating a lot of havoc. We just covered the disgusting rape of a young boy on the last episode. Things aren't much happier now. A group of Muslims reportedly mowed down 3 Christians with their car, killing one of them, while claiming Christian girls are only meant to pleasure Muslim men. And no, I'm not saying all Muslims believe this. Pakistani police also are slow to investigate the January 13th attack by 4 Muslims who spotted the girls while they were walking home to the Christian community of Bawala and proceeded to flirt with them unsuccessfully. So they're even in their own little city and they're being bothered, their own community. How dare you run away from us? Christian girls are meant for only one thing, the pleasure of Muslim men, one of the murderers shouted. But I would argue that these pigs aren't Muslim men at all. I mean, really, pagans can copulate. Show me something that proves you're a man, jerk. The man then rammed their cars into the girls. 2 girls fell to the ground. One's hip was broken. The other's ribs were shattered. Journalist Raymond Ibrahim reported. The youngest, Karan Misa, age 17, flew up in the air and crashed into the speeding car's windshield, and the killers laughed as Misa died from her injuries. I'm agreeing for once with Louis Farrakhan here. They need to be vetted because our policies have led to us being so hated in the world that if we don't watch who comes in, we're done. I mean, Louis Farrakhan is 150% right when he says that. And he's been doing a lot to reach out. He used to be quite a divisive person, and I've noticed lately he has been less He was a racist, plain and simple, and he seems to be less of that these days, which is good because if you can't at least get along with people that you don't agree with, then you're going to end up with something like ISIS. So I support the talking of all sides here. But this isn't talking. You don't let people like this into your country so you can talk to them. In any other nation, the perpetrators would be arrested, convicted for murder, and sentenced for a long term. Human rights activist Wilson Qualdry said, violence against Christians is rarely investigated and highly unlikely to be met with justice. And it's okay to do whatever you want to Christians. Women have a low status in Pakistan, but none more so than Christian women who find themselves under the grip of terror, especially after this attack. And let me ask you, where are the feminists? I can't find them anywhere. It says, meanwhile, in Lubin, Germany, a pregnant woman was sexually assaulted, and it was visible that she was pregnant, assaulted by 6 Muslim migrants, whatever you want to call them, who only stopped their attack when a bystander stepped in and distracted them. And of course, we know about the rapes in New Year's Eve and him bragging that I am Syrian, and Merkel says you must be good to me. Wonderful news, isn't it? Listen to this. They're getting off the we're killing each other thing. As somebody very close to me, like 4 or 5 years ago, had their house so unbelievably swarmed by bedbugs that nobody would go and see them. And yes, that includes me. If that makes me an awful person, then so be it. But I have no desire. But I remember thinking, what is this? I mean, this was something you heard about. I'm a big old movie fan. Something you heard about in the Laurel and the Hardy days. It wasn't something that was really going on today. Well, I guess it seems to be. And Canton, Ohio is where I'm at, one of the worst places in the nation for it. So I'm going to report on it, comment on it, I should say. Chicago leads the way here, but I've heard that it's because we don't use DDT anymore. Well, I'm telling you, DDT is much worse for you than a bedbug is. So if you had to pick, you'd pick the bedbug. But the point is bigger than this. Bedbugs were never news when they were kept in the ghettos and the slums. But now that you're finding them in major hotel chains, now that you're finding them where people with money can go, now, of course, it's a problem. They could have found ways to have effectively killed these things. And I was told that by the person, I'm not going to say their name on here, who had these, and they do make all or natural organic sprays that work. But for the most part, I guess if you get them, you have to get rid of pretty much everything that you own. And I guess my bigger point here is you notice it's only a problem once it starts to affect the rich. I live in an area code in Canton, Ohio. That's not necessarily the most abundant in the city. Where I'm at is, but I've been hearing about it more and more and more. And I thought it was something I thought it was something that was happening in the Mo, Larry, and Curly days. Sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. Well, Chicago tops the bed bug list for the 4th straight year. I didn't even know people were keeping track of this for 4 years. Says bed bugs have apparently taken up long-term residency in Chicago, based on a new report of the Pest Control Organ. Also, pests were spotted in multiple cities in Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, and Kentucky. It said bed bugs, of course, they travel in luggage, and I'm not going to do a whole dissertation on bed bugs, but if you are in Chicago, LA, Washington, New York, Columbus, Philly, Detroit, Cincy, Richmond, Baltimore, you are in the top 10. I'm scrolling up for those of you that want to see where they're at. Look at all these cities: San Diego, St. Louis, Louisville, Decatur, Kansas City, Missouri, Honolulu, Albany, Schenectady, Myrtle Beach. What the hell is going on? It really does seem like biblical days here. I'm dead serious. Friends, you're listening to The Correct Views, reminding you to go here. Sticker Junkie. Why? Because they make really cool stickers like this. This one was a lot nicer before I scuffed it up. They're a sponsor of the show, and they make amazing stickers. I can show you exactly what their stickers look like. They're awesome. If you go into the promo code when you check out and type in The Correct Views or Correct Views, you're going to get a discount even further. And you're going to get stickers that you absolutely love. So make sure that you go there and remember Sticker Junkie. Also, look up the work of Mike McLaughlin, MacLauglin. He writes fiction, he writes poetry, he writes everything, and you're going to want to read it. So go to facebook.com and tell him, Mike McLaughlin, I heard about you from the correct views. What is that? It is the time for the dumb of the day. Excuse me for barking into the damn mic. I don't have a mute button like Rush does, and I'm getting over a cold. Although, thanks to my vitamins, I almost didn't have the cold at all. Look up how to almost never get sick on my channel. It's free. It'll tell you how to get over a cold in no time. I postponed the show, and whenever I do that, you guys know that I give you a very long show. And I'm going to give you 3 fails today instead of just the normal 1 dumpty of the day. It's the 27th, so the Dunce Cap of the Month award is coming very soon. And these are all social justice warrior fails. People that think, oh, racism, oh, sexism. Instead of just doing things to help the races get along, they do things to cause further division. And everything is racist. I DJ in a number of places. And you know what? The only places that ever have a major issue are places to play hip hop. And people say that this is something that you're dealing, at least a number of issues. And they say, well, you're just projecting that onto a color. No, that's just as true, whether or not you're white or Asian or anything else. For some reason, this is projected as black. Hip hop, as it's seen today with Drake and Fetty Wap, is not what most black people would consider their culture. If you called that black culture, I think most black people would call that very racist. And you know what? They should, because it's crap. But when you say something like that and you start talking to people, there's always some people, and I'm just using a for instance here, that will go ahead and say that that is racist. That is not racist. Any more than saying when you have a heavy metal fest, you're going to have a larger number of Satanists at your event. That would be highly offensive to people like me who are Christian and love heavy metal. However, you're certainly going to see more Satanists at a heavy metal fest than you're going to see at a reggae fest. Okay? That's not racist either. That's not something somebody would say because I'm white. It's something somebody would say because I'm true. To say that heavy metal culture is white culture would be absolutely untrue as well. But these people do not speak that way, because whether they are black or female or gay or whatever it is, these social justice warriors feel like they have to somehow create division where there isn't any, or worse than any minor division that might already be there. And I'm going to give you 3 of them in a row. Ebony Editor, we'd all be easier on Bill Cosby if he had supported Black Lives Matter. So basically, we don't mind you raping someone as long as you support the racist movement that is Black Lives Matter. Listen to this.
Cannibal Burris making a joke about the respectability.
I'm going to talk over it because if I don't, they're going to flag me on YouTube.
And I keep thinking to myself, we were ultimately more interested as a people, not just black folks, as Americans, in preserving this.
No, this is ridiculous. It's coming.
Notion of Bill Cosby, right, than in understanding.
I'm going to get to her reply. I don't want to.
Say if Mr. Cosby didn't have that sort of respectability, politics, heavy-handed against single mothers and complicated sounding names and wearing your pants low.
So if you deliberately name your kids something stupid, Bill Cosby was not supposed to point it out. If we say that you look like an idiot wearing your pants down, then we're not supposed to support Bill Cosby. If he's against single mothers because they didn't at least wait, if they didn't wait till they were married, didn't at least use some kind of 99-cent condom, then you're somehow racist. So it's okay to rape somebody with drugs, or at least more supportive, if you support that viewpoint. Oh, that makes it okay to rape because you support people wearing their pants hanging down named Shaquilla, who got pregnant at the age of 12. That's ridiculous.
The thing to hip hop. Say that wasn't who he was. Say that
you're not supposed to pick on hip hop. I don't know of too many white songs that use the word nigga. I happen to hate the word. I don't know too many white songs that talk about slapping your girlfriend or cheating on your girlfriend as if it's a badge of honor. And again, it's all colors and all races. Country music praises alcoholism, and that is equally stupid. We're not going down the color hole here. This is a stupid culture. And she is attacking Bill Cosby for attacking that culture, but she is not attacking Bill Cosby for being a rapist.
Was a supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement, right? Say that he was a leftist. Say that he was really on our side, quote unquote, politically. Would we be having this conversation? How willing would people be to turn their backs on him or to say, you know?
Oh, so it's perfectly okay. It's perfectly okay. Okay, that's our first dumpty of the day. I'm not even going to go into any more of that one. It makes me sick. Notre Dame professor calls permissive gun laws a manifestation of racism. Campus reform, Anthony Gukowski. I'll tell you something else. Why didn't Straight Outta Compton get a Grammy an Academy Award nomination? Because Eazy was a worse person than Bill Cosby. Eazy had AIDS and was sleeping around with groupies who did not know that he had AIDS. He was not wearing a condom. He knew that he was giving them a death sentence, especially in the time period that he was doing it. And they changed the entire culture of rap from one of creativity to one of misogynism, violence, and drug culture. Now, again, I'm sure you can look at me. Have I ever smoked a bowl? No. Okay, I'm not saying I'm against everything. I'm not saying I'm this Puritan kind of person, because I'm not. But I'm saying that they brought far more, Eazy-E brought far more harm to people than Bill Cosby did. At least Bill Cosby didn't give them a life of sickness after he raped them. I mean, they're both sick people. But the point is, you're not allowed to say any of that. You're not, because it gets somehow baited into color, and that's why I'm dealing with it on the dumpty of the day. A professor of philosophy at the University of Notre Dame published an op-ed in the New York Times linking lenient gun laws in America to racism. Idiot Professor Gary Guting argued permissive gun laws are a manifestation of racism and invoked hatred of racism as a motivation for the gun control movement. According to Guting, high exposure to guns in largely poor black neighborhoods, along with low restrictions on gun ownership, permeates the culture of racism. No. Perhaps having a culture given to the industry or the entertainment industry that lets you know, like, I'm a big horror movie fan, never taken Saw seriously, never thought it was glorified to go and chop somebody up. Maybe if you promoted something that didn't say that this is what you are supposed to do with a gun, then you wouldn't have this problem. Guting, in an effort to rouse his gun control allies, posits racism as the motivational force behind the successful gun control campaign. Racism, in Guting's argument, will give the gun control movement the vigor and persistence needed to overcome gun lobbyists. If we fail to oppose with equal passion and vigor the relentless political pressure of mostly white gun advocates, we force a large number of black citizens to live in the constant threat of gun violence. Okay, first of all, do you remember last week or a week and a half ago we talked about the idiot on the dumpty of the day who said that white people with guns were most likely to be terrorists, that them and their guns were the threat? Well, this guy is saying, why don't we take the guns off the black community so they have no way to defend themselves? So giving black people a way to defend themselves is racist. Now, I don't know about you, but if somebody comes barging into this studio right now, I don't think I'm going to be any less quick to use a gun if I need to, if they are white, than if they are black. Because I personally don't want to be robbed, raped, or murdered by anybody of any race. I'm an equal opportunity, not wanting the diest. You can count me in for that. That's me. Ridiculous. Gunning supports his argument with a Gallup poll that shows blacks have stricter gun control laws considerably more than whites. That's not true. With whatever the city they live in, it depends where they live. Never mind the fact that blacks being able to defend themselves is one of the things that stopped the KKK back in the day when they were owning the South. And you know what? Every KKK member that got capped bothering a black person had it coming to them. And I'm glad that that black person had a gun. Yes, I said it. Lastly, feminists denounce German-born men after migrant sexist attacks. Yes, it is the white Germans' fault that the Islamic refugees were raping white women in their city. The white German men made them do it. This is the one here. Feminists responded to the mass molestation of women by foreign migrants, I have a listener that hates that word, in Cologne on New Year's Eve by denouncing German-born men. Dozens of women in Cologne and other areas of Germany were sexually assaulted and terrorized by a group of up to 1,000 men of Arab and North African origin during a wave of attacks that police described as a civil war-like situation. I'm drinking problem. There is a link right there. I completely just spilled that down my chin live on air. That's awesome. Hey, at least you know it's real. Instead of drawing attention to the Muslim rape epidemic that has swept Germany and other European countries since the deluge of refugees began to arrive last year, feminists, always concerned about women, focused on the apparent threat posed by German men. In an interview with Deutsche Welle, activists who gathered at the Multicultural Center in the neighborhood of Mulheim, I think that's how it's pronounced, tried to deflect blame from the migrants responsible for the attack, claiming that sexual assaults were a big problem long before the refugees even came here. So the fact that refugees are doing it now, they must have learned it from the Germans. They didn't know how to rape before they got there. One feminist named Tanja even went so far as to imply that the conversation should not be about refugees, but German men, despite the fact that a leaked police report, right there, fact cam, found that 14 of the 15 culprits arrested for the attacks were Syrian refugees. So it was actually one German pig that was joining in the rape because he saw that the Muslims were getting away with it. It wasn't he did it first and the 14 Islamists followed him. And again, we're talking about the Islamists in this story. I'm not saying that all Islamists are rapists. I'm just saying that a very large percentage of them seem to be. I'm sorry to break this to you, but German-born men also harass and rape, she said. Tanja didn't have any words of condemnation for Cologne Mayor Henriette Recker, who asked women to follow a code of conduct to prevent attacks that included keeping potential rapists at arm's length. What happened to women should be able to wear whatever they want and not be raped, which I happen to agree with. Whatever happened to that? The comments were almost as ludicrous as those made by German Interior Minister Ralph Jaeger, who asserted that criticism of the migrant wave amongst conservative Germans on the internet was just as awful as the mass molestation carried out. So criticizing someone is as bad as raping someone. Meanwhile, regressive leftists, social justice warriors, like journalist Ian Dunt, seemed less concerned about the actual attacks and more interested in blaming the condemnation on the right-wing Islamophobia. Now, they're not afraid. They don't want raped. It's just, they don't care if they're Islamic or not. They don't want raped. They could be atheists. They don't want raped. Call it a hunch. Response to aggressive left attacks of Cologne deflect to focus on Islamophobes to avoid addressing the issue. Yeah, so what we're dealing with here isn't a rape culture that might be fueled by certain kinds of mindsets or certain looking at women as if they were chattel. No, our problem is the fact that a few idiots in every culture decide to rape people. So the people that are new to the culture get a free pass on their rape. You're listening to the correct views. This has made my head hurt. Please donate to the show if you can. The correct views at hotmail.com. Every penny you give to me goes towards a better show. And again, these conversations aren't meant to divide, but it is time we take down the PC wall and just all laugh at each other. Laugh at me too. The Gangi sounds like the Dago. There you go. I gave you a free one.